Gina, what do you say? We take it to the max. How are you, lady? How are you?
I'm good. It's spring is picking up, so things are getting busy and the industry's moving, life is moving, so all is well. No complaints.
All is well. And I know, like, let's just address this right off the bat. Your lighting is rough. My voice is so nasally. I've been sick. I'm drinking a matcha and slowly but surely my lips are turning green. So you know what? We're just not even using video. We're going audio only for this one. I feel great about it.
LaDonna, we made a good effort. I mean, we tried to get visuals working for a half hour and finally just threw it in and said we just got to get something on the board, which is life, right? We can't sit
Yeah.
back and wait for things to be perfect. We talked about this. Sometimes you just go and it's imperfect, but getting it done is more important than worrying about how it looks.
A for effort. What is it that you say about being messy? I love what you say.
Oh, like I'm just big. Like I'm messy. I think people have a perception of me that is different than reality. The reality is like I'm messy and I'm good with it. Like I'm really good with it. I'm like, no, I'm messy, but it gets done. So at the end of the
Yes.
day, like if people want me to make it look all, beautiful and perfect, I can do that in time. But right now I got to get some results. And people are hungry for results right now. People are so hungry for show me something to restore my hope or my faith in this. And so I'm seeing that across the board where I'm coming into different teams, I'm looking at different stuff, and they're so hungry for leadership, they're hungry for results, they're hungry for change, and they just want to see improvement across the board. So that's a big thing. And I always tell them, I'm like, suit up, it's going to get messy. Like if you want it perfect and clean, you want me to come in and draw org charts for you, I can do that. It just doesn't get the results that we need. To get results, you got to get messy.
Oh, I
And
love
the other thing I
this.
would say is I don't have to look that great all the time because I don't work at Vogue. So that's a big one. I'm like, I'm not at Vogue today. I don't have to look great. So it's often that you'll see me in jeans and a t-shirt with hair and a pony and no makeup.
I feel like that's something that really shifted in a post-pandemic life where we all realized, you know what, I can be just as productive in my band tee and my jeans. Like let me do my thing. I've got this. I've got this. So I'm with you. I do want to back up a little bit because I did not do you proper justice. This is kind of what we do. We tend to just jump right into things. But I want to do you proper justice. Let's actually introduce you. You are Jeanna Lankkree. You are a mortgage operations expert. You have your company Mortgage Mentor Group. I mean, the name says it all. That is what you're doing. You are going in, you are mentoring different companies and showing them what they should be doing. You are a literal mortgage expert. You are one of the most phenomenal mortgage experts that I've ever come across in my career. I adore you. Your brain works in a completely different capacity than mine does. You have so much information stored in there about guidelines and operations. Thank you. Thank you for sitting down with me today. I really do appreciate it. Lighting be damned. We will figure this thing out. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I like to think of myself as a mortgage learner, right? I'm constantly learning. Every team that I go into, every group that I go into, and they'll ask me, "Hey, we want to scale, we want to grow. It's time for us to elevate our group. We've been at this level for this long, or whatever the case may be." I always go in there and I have to learn their systems, right? I have to learn what do they do, what's working for them. Each group is so unique. There's not one path, and so I like to say I'm a mortgage learner.
I love that. Let's jump right into that. So, when companies are setting up their mortgage operations, what do you see as kind of the most common mistake that they're making when setting them up initially?
I think that's a great, what you said is exactly one of the biggest mistakes. They don't set it up right. So by the time they call me, it's already set up and it's not getting the results that they want it to get. So, or it is getting the results, but they just don't know how to scale it. So in that case, that's when I come in and look at a team and I start dissecting it. One of the biggest things I see consistently is not sharing like role identity. So role identity
Ah,
is huge, right? Who does what here? And so it's a lot of, community leadership or community, getting a loan across the board. It's like, well, sometimes this person does this and sometimes that person does it. Sometimes this happens, sometimes that happens, but there's no clear role identity and ownership of that loan. So it's who does what part of the process for you and do they own that in entirety? That's one of the biggest mistakes I see happen is where it's Some of the times, some of the way, this is how.
What do you think they should be doing to help to streamline their operations and improve efficiency? What do you think are kind of those key components that maybe they're missing?
Yeah, I think there's three. So the first thing I would say is get really clear on what you want. What is your goal? What do you want to stand for? Is it speed? Is it, the best service? Is it, whatever your goal is, get very clear on what that is, how you want to identify your brand and what you're accomplishing in this industry. Get clear on what that is. Then you design your system to meet that. And so when you're designing your system, the second part I would say is get really clear what that looks like. So identify if it's speed, you have to be really tight on turn times. Turn times are going to be your goal. So turn times and efficiency, that's going to be 100% all you're worried about. That's going to, be your focus. So you backtrack that and then you go, what do I need to put in place to execute this every single time? And from there, you go, okay, I need this many days on this side of the loan, this many days on this side of the loan, if you're simplifying it, right? And then you backtrack that and you time it. So I think that's a big one. That would be a huge one. And then the other one is once you're clear on what you want and you start identifying how you make that happen, and that's kind of the hard part, right? A lot of times people don't know, how do I make this happen? And they think they have to overhaul all of it. And I always say to have really great operations, what you need is a lot of fine tuning, right? You don't take a race car and make a sharp turn. It's slight adjustments all the time. Now, if you have a team that's in implosion mode, then you've got to make some real drastic moves, rip off the Band-Aid and get it done. But I would say identify what you want. Secondly, get really clear on what that looks like. And then if you do anything, it would be identifying who's going to do what.
Okay, fantastic. I think going into 2025, we're still at the beginning of the year, into 2026, we're seeing so many different components of the loan process be automated. They're being shifted away. So I think customer experience is going to really start weighing heavily on a lot of operations teams' minds. Any suggestions for what people should be doing in order to improve their customer experience right now?
That's a great question. I think if you're not utilizing some form of AI, you're going to fall behind. It has to integrate in, but a lot of people see this as a detriment to their client experience, which it can be. If you rely on it too heavily, you don't have that personal touch, you could lose that. However, if you integrate it well, I think it elevates your client experience because you can utilize it to your advantage to get extremely efficient on all the legwork, right? All of the pieces that take, bodies and time and energy. You can streamline that, gain a lot of speed, and focus that energy and put it back out there as the client experience, right? So where a processor may have been focused prior, looking all the way through a title documents or something like that, they no longer have to do that. They have some AI support that can go through that in a matter of seconds, and that time can be reallocated to identifying other ways to provide a higher service level to the client.
I think you're so right. What do you, when you're going in and advising these companies that are bringing you in because they know that they need some assistance in operations, in scaling, how do you help them identify the correct people and leaders for who should be running their operations? I know so many times they must have a team in place already, but if that team isn't necessarily the right team to get the job done, how do you help them with that?
Candid honesty. You have to be
Mm.
really honest. And at the same time, you have to be very sensitive, right? There's a lot of emotion there. There's people that are attached. And it's not always about the people. I think a lot of times we're thinking this person isn't working. So, first thing you have to realize is it a system issue? My very first question always is it a leadership issue? I
Mhm.
always feel the leader is more accountable than the people. So, is it a leadership issue? That's my first question. Second issue is it a system issue or is it a process issue? System meaning things that they're interfacing with, LOS, stuff like that, or is it a process meaning they don't have the right steps set up for that team to succeed? And then I go to another step, which is do they have the competency and have they been trained to do it? So, are they smart people that just haven't been shown how to do it and they can do it if they have the right training and education and system in place? Or is this just a bad fit all the way around? Culture's bad. Oftentimes what I find is it's the right person in the wrong seat, or it's the right person that's been put in a seat that's never been trained or coached or shown how to do it. So somebody asked me recently, a question that I'd never thought about. And they said, what got you to this level? How did you, learn how to do this? Like, how does your brain work like this? And I thought it was fascinating because I'd never thought about it. And it came to one thing: I had exposure. I saw
Mm.
other people doing it well, and I wanted to emulate that. And so I went and started picking their brain and going, okay, this is the COO of this company. This is this. And I just became like, hey, show this, show me that. So I went and I found like the top operations managers at the lender, and how do they work? How do they function? And so it's exposure. And so once your people are exposed to that, and then you implement a standard, a process, procedure, training, all of those pieces, they can get there. It doesn't have to be that encumbrant, right? I mean, I'm with a very large team right now that has high volume, and they're at a big lender. So this one takes a lot more work. But, on this can be broken down into a really small scale, and, tiny bites, and you can get there.
I think that that is such a fresh and candid look at it too, of you have to be willing to look inward. You have to be willing to actually evaluate if you are doing things correctly, if the people that you have in those positions really are the right people for the job. And I think you're so right. I think a lot of times it's not a capability issue. People are plenty capable. I've said this for years about, like, I can train a monkey to do just about any job. It's an attitude thing. It's a capability thing. And if they are capable and willing, that's already half the battle. But there's a competency component to it that definitely drives a lot deeper when you get to those higher level type positions. And I think actually having the wherewithal to say, hey, wait a second, we need to make sure that this actually is the right person. And if they are, what can we be doing to better support them? I love that you mentioned coaching, mentorship. These are things that I think people, they overlook them too frequently. And I do think that they are always worth the time. I know that we hear the analogy all the time of, like, look at the greatest football players. They all have a coach, right?
Mhm.
But there's a reason why that analogy continues to perpetuate, because it's true. We do, in order to be our best, we need to surround ourselves with the best, and we need people who know how to optimize us to our best level. So I think that's a really fantastic point. I want to move a little bit into guidelines, because right now there are a lot of changes happening within the mortgage industry. It feels like with the new presidency and the people that he's put into place, we're seeing a lot shifting really quickly. And there are going to be those trickle down effects of what will be changing in the future. I want to ask you about guidelines and what people can be doing right now to try to stay as on top and relevant when it comes to different loan programs. What should they be doing in order to keep themselves on top of everything?
Yeah, LaDonna, this is great. And this ties into the first portion. And so I want to close the loop on the first portion and
Please.
come right into this one, because they actually they coincide. And so what I'm saying with AI and what I'm seeing is that, the days of being a paper pusher in this industry and operations are over. You have to be an
Mhm.
expert. You have to be an expert. And so when you're evaluating people, you're looking at skill set, yes, but you're also looking at their ability to communicate. So their ability to communicate directly is correlated to their success in this business. So you can have somebody that has the best capability in the sense of moving the loan and understanding pieces and how to do it, but they're an awful communicator. And it's just not going to cut it with all the technology that's coming out and what's going to be required to have seats in this business in the operation side. So I think that's really something, what is trainable, what is not. And so there's literally times that I'm diving into somebody's email going, fix this, fix this. It's very tedious, but it has a big result. So that's one of the reasons that I do what I do. Also, coming into guidelines, like you just mentioned, it ties back in. Guidelines come down to, the guidelines are going to change. Most of this business stays the same, but there's always little pivots, right? It's those slight adjustments, like we were talking about, that elevate the business, move it forward. And most of the time, a guideline comes down to one word. I've seen this repeated, over my entire career, where There's an interpretation. Everybody says, this is how we've done it. Why do we do it that way? Well, we've always done it this way. Underwriter such and such said it has to be done this way. I had a loan 2 years ago and this was the guide, or I had this happen and this is what they required. I'm not saying pushback. I don't like, friction relationships with underwriters. I have great relationships with underwriters, and it's really crucial that all of you do as well and utilize your underwriters to your advantage. But don't assume that they know everything, right? They're not a robot that's sitting there and just, knowing everything. Even the robots that are underwriting now have flaws and are programmed to only view things a certain way. So you really do have to become an expert right now in this industry. There's no way that you can sit back and do what you were doing a year ago, 2 years ago. Even what you're doing right now will be, predominantly irrelevant in about 6-7 months. You've got to be evolving. And the way to evolve is staying ahead of those guidelines, understanding them. One word, literally something that states, we talked about this in our Max combo, something that, states, everybody was going off this guide where it was showing delinquent taxes. So everybody's going, oh, I need 3 months of payments and I got to show blah, blah, blah. And I was like, actually, no, we're not delinquent. Look at the word over here. This is, new debt. So that was really, something like that. A lot of times we've won a lot of condos and people are going, that condo was declined, that condo was this. And if you understand the background, right? Most people that are giving you those condo documents are volunteers. There are big companies that are doing that, but those big companies aren't auditing all of those documents the way that you think they would. They have somebody on the inside that's volunteering, doing this after hours or on a weekend, sending that data over. And so most of the documents you get aren't 100% accurate. If you don't know what you're looking at, if you're not watching guidelines, you're not understanding what you're actually requiring from a client, you shouldn't be sending it out. And those tiny, tiny bits and pieces in a loan, one word, one number, one interpretation changes an entire pipeline. And once you figure that out, we've seen people create massive niches and really impressive businesses off of that.
What a fascinating take. And I want to tie this together with a guest that I actually just had on here a week ago. I had Chris Burks. He's the head of growth for Zetro. Something really cool that they're doing, they have Guideline GPT. You can literally plug a loan scenario into it. It comes back with, hey, this meets this loan program. Here are the guidelines that you need to follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is from an AI approach. It does not have that same human quality to go back to question it, to see what maybe can be done with it, how it can be interpreted so that maybe the loan, you thought it was dead and it's not. I think you're so right that there needs to be an integration of both. You have to be able to leverage and utilize AI. It is going to make you faster. It is going to make you more efficient, but it is not a scapegoat. You do still need to know the process and the rules in play so that you know how to combat them if needed. So I think that is an excellent point. What do you see changing? And again, I know I'm kind of asking you to pull out a crystal ball on this, but do you see any underwriting changes coming up in the near future? Anything kind of on your mind?
I think people are going to stabilize right now. I genuinely feel that, right? People ask me a lot, what do you think are going to happen with homes? What do you think are, and I don't know why they ask me that because I don't have any real expertise in it other than, just longevity in the industry, but more so I just get good gut instinct, right? It's good gut instinct. And I think that things have been kind of in a lull for, the past 3 years. It lasted a lot longer than people thought. I believe people thought there was going to be this bounce back of like, we were going to go back down to those 2% and 3% rates. And I had some good debates with some really close girlfriends across the industry. And they're like, no, we're getting a refi boom. Last fall, everybody thought this refi boom was coming. I said, absolutely not. It's not coming. It'll be a little bit, but it's definitely not coming. And looking at how people are responding right now, what they're, looking at, just different data, I think it's going to stabilize. I don't think we're going to see these big, massive influxes or big, massive dips. I think people are just kind of watching things. They're staying cautious. And so I think that's going to translate into underwriting as well, right? As long as loans are being purchased, I think, investors are going to try to stay as stable as they can. I think they realize that the industry's had a lot of shakeup. Providing more shakeup or going too drastic on guidelines in one way or another could result in not the best outcome. So I think they're going to try to stabilize those as much as possible. So big changes that are coming or big changes that are foreseen to come, right? I mean, we made such a big deal out of, a couple of things that have changed in the industry over the past 2 years. They turned out to be not really that big of a deal once they went into application. So I think it's the same thing. There's always going to be people that are making a big deal out of stuff saying, oh, this is coming and it's pending, get ahead of it. I'm a big proponent for getting ahead of things, understanding it, knowing it. But overall, I mean, if you look at the history of this industry, it hasn't changed much in 20 years. I mean,
Right.
we have this, but I mean, it still takes the basic things to do a loan: credit, assets, a good property, all the main pieces are the same. And so I think the guidelines will adjust, but I don't think we're going to see anything major. I think we'll just see people trying to stabilize. So anything that anything that moves one way or another, I think we're going to see guides adjust slightly just to stabilize whatever that is.
Yeah. I would really love this has kind of been my soapbox guideline pitch of 2025. I would really love to see some guideline change when it comes to gig workers. I really do think that not enough has been done to advocate for people who work in gig economies. Maybe they work gig jobs solely. Maybe they use it as a part-time job. I mean, so many people are turning to more and more gig type jobs. We should be considering that income when qualifying them. So that's been my own little personal soapbox. I like to just bring it up periodically to remind other people.
No, as crazy as things, may seem in some areas, I think this is one of the greatest opportunities for people to build out niche developments. And when we were in physician lending and we were, building that whole platform out, a lot of that, people thought it was some great, spectacular program we had built or whatever. I will tell you, it was literally just knowing the guides better than anybody else and diving in and working with the agencies and then working with the credit bureaus and working with every third party person to make sure that that was all aligned really well. And to my surprise, the agencies were not hesitant. I think we have this perception that the agencies, do they understand every guide they roll out? Absolutely not. They do not. I mean, that's been clear when they roll guides out. You're going, this doesn't make sense. They didn't understand the back part of this. There's times that they roll stuff out. It doesn't make sense in application. It was great in theory. But what I found was they're very, they were open, they were receptive. If we built a case and went over and asked for terms of business and said, hey, I want you to open this up and let us try this out. If we had a high enough purchase rate on it and everything went well, they then made those guides mainstream. And so anybody that's, concerned about a certain guide, or they're saying this doesn't make sense, or they're seeing something in their business that's coming up repetitive, they can, work with the agencies to address those guides, get greater understanding, or ask them to make adjustments. Now, granted, the big lenders have a lot more pull on this, but it doesn't mean that, it's off the table. And if you can get them to understand something, or if you can show them where there's value, I have found that they've been accommodating and they've been willing to make adjustment.
Thank you for highlighting that because I don't think that that is something that people have enough confidence in. I don't think that they hold enough confidence in their own understanding to go and to say like, no, wait a second. We do think that you should reevaluate this. We do think that you should consider these points that I'm bringing to the table. And it all comes back to really being an expert in your field and truly understanding what you need to know and how to go about being an expert so that you can advocate harder. What for people who maybe don't have quite that level of understanding, they need to continue to educate themselves. What resources do you think are kind of the best ones for them to turn to become that expert?
There are so many great resources out there when it comes to, guidelines, especially now. I mean, you can look up anything. We used to, back in the day, we had this like manila big binder book. And it was like, here's your agency handbook. And we'd have to go through that and search and hunt and find stuff. Now there's so much at your resource. I mean, or at your access, you have access to so many resources. And so what you can do is, I mean, you have, all rigs, you've got mortgage currency, which is now mortgage guidelines. You've got, knowledge owl, there's so many, or knowledge coop, there's so many out there that are really good. My personal favorite, and I'm not sponsored by them, but this is a little plug. I actually love mortgage guidelines. They just have some of the best information out there. I think it's user friendly and really easy to navigate. So I'm a big proponent of them, and I utilize that a lot with my teams and stuff. And I train a lot from it. I coach a lot from it because they have some really great information. But I don't think there's a lack of information. I think there's a lack of understanding. And there's also, if we're going to be really candidly honest, there's a lack of want to, right? I mean, we have an industry that gets to do not too much for a big reward sometimes. And there's people that just aren't motivated to dive into that much. They don't want to do that much. And that's okay. They're just like, hey, I'm happy doing this. This is what I want to do. And I'm going to leave that to somebody else. And for those people, that's completely fine. But you could lose some loans to other people that are putting in the work to actually research that, little tiny additional bit of information.
I guess that's kind of the true question then, is what is the cost of your ignorance? How many loans are you costing yourself by not diving deeper into this? And I do want to just notate that you mentioned one of my competitors in there that you recommend. So I'm going to go back and edit that out. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'll leave it.
No, edit that out. I'm like, cry.
It's okay. It's okay. They're doing just fine. They'll be fine. Okay. Well, I know that you have kind of
I just know they're out there.
It really is fine. Okay. I know you have kind of a hard out coming up. So let's jump into some wrap-up questions. What is one piece of advice that you wish you had been given earlier on in your career?
Wow, that is I'm pausing because that is such a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think the best piece of advice is stay out of your head, stay more in the work.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that is good. That is good on so many levels.
Whenever I get in my head, which, it happens, right? You have a whole bunch of stuff coming at you in the seats that I've sat in, and you're running entire companies or you're running, entire divisions. And, there's so many people there. You can get in your head really quick. And there's days that you can feel like, man, I'm not succeeding, or I failed over here, or I failed over there. So whenever I start getting in my head, I just go back to work. I just shut it off and get back to work. That seems to solve a lot for me.
Girl, that is good. That is powerful. If you could implement one major change in the mortgage industry today, what would it be?
One major change in the mortgage industry for me would be, I would love to see more support for people, right? I see people that fumble in this industry. They're all over the place. They're not doing much. And somebody will have an experience with them. And then it comes to somebody that's put in the work, or, and you're seeing the rewards kind of happen naturally. But I think if I could do one thing, it would be to really make sure that people that are in this industry are qualified to be here.
I love that answer. I think it is such a low barrier of entry to get into this.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always best serve people, industry standards, reputations, etc. So I think that's a really great answer. And when you find the right people, do everything that you can to provide the support to them to ensure that they can really thrive and flourish. I love that.
I think people buy some of the largest purchases, the most emotional purchase they're going to make. And it should be more than just about your paycheck.
Totally. Completely. What is the most rewarding element and aspect of what you're doing right now?
Oh, growing people. That was an easy one. You see somebody win their day, or you see somebody that was struggling, or somebody that didn't have a skill set or an understanding of something, a few days prior, and then you see them really come into their own. And that is, there's nothing better.
I know that is something that you are notorious for. Your reputation beyond precedes you in that you carry such weight with your name and the way that you go in and you change these teams. So you should be really proud of having that as part of your legacy, because that is a really incredible gift that you are giving to these companies. Where can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
I'm LaDonna, you know this. I say no way more than yes. I'm like, nope, I'm busy for this time. I'm very structured with my schedule and who I'll take on and who I won't. So if they really want to get a hold of me and it's something they want to take seriously, I'm going to tell them to go through you. I'm not putting my blanket information out
I
there.
love that. I love that. I will be the one to weed them out.
Yeah, I'm going to tell them go through LaDonna, because if they really put the effort in to go through you, then they're serious, and then they'll connect to me. Otherwise, I end up with a bunch of text messages or instant messages or whatever going, hey, can you this? And you're spending a week or two back and forth, and it's not worth it. So I say go through LaDonna. She has a good judge of character.
There you go. There you go. I'll take that on for you because I think you're right. And if they're persistent enough to deal with me, then they finally deserve to get to you. So I'm okay with that answer. You are amazing. Thank you again for doing this. I love sitting down with you. I love picking your brain. You really do have a mind that just works in a completely different capacity than mine. And I think it's so fascinating. And yet at the same time, you are one of the warmest, most personable people that you could ever meet. And I am so appreciative of that. So thank you again. Thank you for doing this. I will have you back because we have a billion other topics that we can talk about, but we're out of time. So let's have you back. You're amazing.
Thank you, LaDonna. I feel the same way about you. So I appreciate you having me on. This is a lot of fun, and whatever I can do to help, I'm here.
You're the best. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for taking it to the max.